How's it going, everybody? Welcome to part 11 in the series. As you can see here, we've got everything fully disconnected off of the back. A lot of work. In your situation, depending on what accessories you have back here, you're going to have a lot of little wires and everything that you're going to need to disconnect. You can see there I've got a drain that I had to cut. That tube was not going to come off. That green wire is a ground, and then there's a chain from the gas tank. That's there, and then there is the red and black wires for the rear light. But other than that, you'll see a hole on the top. That's for the speed sensor. And then we've got some other miscellaneous for the bilge pump and another drain over there. Alright, let's focus down here a little bit. So this boat also had a live well on it, and the owners do not want a live well put back in it. So I essentially cut the wires, and when we rebuild the transom, it won't have any kind of provisions for a live well. And probably not a bad thing. This one was blocked off when I started working on it, so for whatever reason, maybe it was leaking or something. There is a good amount of sealant in here. As far as the drain itself, it's still pretty solid around here. Normally you'll see this really loose, but if you squeeze around here, a lot of flex right here if you put right on that bolt hole. And then it gets a little bit harder and then progressively better. On this side, we've got rot all the way up here. Ton of rot on this one, and you can kind of see in here. It's pretty bad. Yeah, and that's probably the worst right here. There's a noticeable void. So yeah, this is definitely gonna need some repair. As far as the floorboard is concerned, we do have some separation in the, what I'm going to assume is polyester resin. What I'll do is when we start cutting into this transom, I'll actually cut a section off here and inspect the plywood. If the plywood in this area is rotten, I will then do another cut a little bit further back, maybe about a foot or two, and then re-inspect it there. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll actually splice in a new piece of wood, and yeah, depending on what we find when we start cutting into here and we cut into here, we just keep cutting forward until we stop seeing rot. Alright, so you want your area pretty cleaned out here. What we're going to do next is, you can see how we've had the rug cut out. I'm going to cut back probably past the rug an additional foot, and it's going to go all the way up there, and then same thing back here, and we'll cut the rug all the way out there. You can save the rug if you want, maybe clean it if you're trying to be super cheap. I've got a surprise for you coming when you see the supplies come for how I'm going to rebuild this transom. If you watched my preview video, I kind of alluded to what type of materials we were going to use to rebuild this transom. It's kind of neat. Maybe some would consider it overkill. I like to consider it bulletproof. So next step is get your box cutter, and like I said, cut some of your carpet out. I'm going to say about 2 or 3 feet back, just so you have good access to the floor. Alright. Alright, and you can see here we cut the carpet out, exposing what is the floorboard here. Pretty standard, nothing crazy so far. Just been hitting on it. Got a soft spot right here. I don't know how I feel about that. Probably not a good sign. We'll see. Like I said, I'm going to cut into this. Yeah, see, like this side over here is pretty solid. So we may have a case where part of the floorboard is rotted. What I tend to do is I'll keep cutting forward until I find a section that isn't compromised. So we'll see what happens. All right, so where are we at next in this little project? Let's talk about the supplies you're going to need, because from here on out, we're going to be cutting into this transom. So there's going to be some stuff that you're going to need. Otherwise, you're going to fall very ill, and you're going to be very sick, or at the very minimum, very itchy. So let's go over some gear that you're going to need to have here. Okay, so let's go over some prerequisites that you're going to need before you even think about cutting into this transom. And I mean this wholeheartedly. Make sure you got all this stuff before you start, because if you don't, yeah, it's not going to be very fun. All right, let's talk about safety here first. What I recommend is a full coverage. It's basically like a painter suit. This is neat because it has the feet, the boots built into it, and it has a hood. You definitely want this full getup, because then all you need is your gloves and you're pretty much set up. We'll go over the mask and eye protection here in a second. So I use the MSA brand face mask, and I'll show that to you here in a second. These are P100s, which cover basically everything, including asbestos. The trick with it is when you start working around the acetone, if you can smell acetone, you probably don't have the right filters. So on that note, here's the mask that I got. So you can see this has been used quite a lot, and when you're working around fiberglass and cutting it, which we'll talk about the oscillating tool and the grinder as we're moving forward, you're going to want a full face mask. I have seen videos. There's this guy up in Dallas, he actually did his without, he just had a breather. If you're going to go ultra cheap and do that, I can only imagine what your eyes are going to feel like afterwards. So go on Amazon or eBay and get the full face mask. I've seen them as cheap as 50 bucks. And I'm telling you right now, your safety is definitely going to be an important thing to take seriously when you're doing this next part here. So definitely get the full face mask. Don't do just the breather. And you can see these filters they have met their useful life. A lot of work on them. That's why I got the extra, the new filters there. The other thing we're going to go after here is the oscillating tool. And this is a Porter cable. You can get D-wall. A lot of the blades that we're going to use in these videos, you'll see they're universal. And basically what this does is it vibrates left and right. If you're doing a transom replacement, it is impossible to do it without this tool. So it doesn't matter which brand you get, if you're going to go ultra cheap or whatever, but this one, it works fantastic. If you can get the one where it has the variable speeds in the back, that's helpful too. But I've used this tool multiple times for just about everything. Gotta have it. So if you're watching this video and you're thinking, hey, I'm going to rebuild my transom, better get one of these. They're not that expensive. Now, you can get these off of Amazon. These are the universal style oscillating blades. I bought it in a pretty big pack. You want to buy as many as you can. You want at least 20 blades. You will go through these blades. Probably, I had a loose one here, but I guess we'll pull one out of the bag. You'll go through one of these blades in roughly, I'm going to say every maybe 3 to 5 minutes. You're going to go through one. And if you don't get the bimetal ones and you get just the wood blades, and the bimetal, the easiest way to identify them, if you go on like the popular sites like Amazon or eBay, they have a silver connector. That tells you they're typically bimetal. So you want to get a huge package of these. If you don't take my word for it and you only buy like 5, yeah, you're going to be waiting for your next package. So I believe this is like it's a 25 pack, but this is great for cutting into fiberglass bimetal. And then obviously you're going to need your ear protection and some duct tape. And here, I think I talked about this early on, you're gonna need a roll of plastic to cover the boat, especially everything behind you, because it's all going to get coated in fiberglass. It's going to get really messy. Probably not so much with the oscillating tool, The oscillating tool probably won't make that much, but once you start getting in with the grinder, and you're going to see here, we're going to have to clean up all the edges with the grinder. That's going to sling fiberglass absolutely everywhere. So you're definitely going to need those tools. But definitely, you know, consider the full face mask. You're going to need it. Huge important piece. And then your full body gear here. All right, so the next thing you're going to need here is a tape measure. And what you're going to need to do is just do a check to see how thick your transom is, because once you start cutting into it, you won't be able to take measurements because obviously it's not there anymore. So at its thickest part, it looks like it's trying to be 2 inches, and then up here, I've already measured it. This up here is roughly going to be about 1.5 inches. So you want to take measurements from a few different locations here, and back here we're 1.5 inches. So essentially what they did with this transom is they started off with 1.5 inches up here, and then they, as it got lower to the bottom, they made it 2 inches. All right, so here's what I recommend you do, because there is a little bit of play on these bolts. And what's going to happen is with your transom is you're probably not going to want to do like what they did. So this is kind of unusual. It's 2 different thicknesses and it tapers down. What you're going to want to do is probably go with the greater of the thicknesses, which is in this case it's 2 inches here, and make the whole entire transom 2 inches. What that's going to do is it's also going to throw off your engine alignment. So if you were just going to rebuild the transom exactly how it is now and then you put in the motor afterwards, you would technically be able to just drop it right back in and maybe tweak the alignment a little bit. But in this situation, if you make it 2 inches throughout, it's going to change your engine alignment. So I kind of figured that would be the case. I didn't think it was going to make it that easy for us. So what we're going to do is, moving forward, is we're going to make this a 2-inch transom throughout. It'll make it stronger, and like I said, once you see what type of reinforcement we're going to use on this, you'll see why having a little bit extra thickness isn't going to hurt anything. All right, so that concludes video number 11 in the series. What we're going to do in the next, call it episode 12, is I'm going to suit up and get this boat covered in plastic, and we're actually going to start cutting into this. So you'll actually get to see how I'm going to do that, and hopefully as I'm talking through my mask, you all can understand me still. So I hope you liked the series so far. As always, like, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next episode. Have a good one.